For the purposes of this course, we're going to be using a code editor called Dreamweaver. There are also code editors such as Notepad++, and as you can see here, we've got Notepad++ opened up on the same file that we have within Dreamweaver. So the purposes of the course, we're going to be using Dreamweaver, but you can also use Notepad++. It's an open source editor, and there's a whole bunch of additional editors that you can get to work with your HTML code. And as you can see here, even in Notepad++, it actually takes those opening and closing tags, and you can open up the different tag elements within the menu here on the left-hand side. And then in addition to that, we're going to be using Chrome as our browser. So if we also have a web server, a local host running on our machine. So that's why we're able to go to course.website. And this just translates going over to our local host machine. So it's actually not necessary to set up a local host if you're doing HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, because this is all front-end code and it's run through the browser. And the browser is the one that actually interprets the code that's being output. So you can actually go over to your files and you can simply open up the file that you've created. So we're creating by default the starting page for our web servers usually is index. So again, this is dependent on what the web server structure is, but by default usually you're going to start off with a starting page of index, and as you can see here, when I go to the root directory, it's going to look for that index file, and when it sees that index file, that's the one it's going to display. So this is going to be the same thing as typing in index.html, same thing. But this is just showing us the root file. And again, you can go to the documents directory or directly. So as I've done here, where I just go to the path where the file is located, and you can see here that the output is still the same. It's actually outputting it the same way. So I just had that zoom there. So really with HTML, and to practice HTML and CSS and JavaScript, you don't need a lot of tools on your computer. You can literally do it with the browser and download any editor. You can even use TextPad or any other content editor, Microsoft Word as well. And there's a whole bunch of options for different editors, open source editors. So I do encourage you to download one and start working and practicing the code, because it is important to practice the code that we're talking about in order to get familiar with what each different tag is going to do and how that functions and outputs within the browser. And especially when we get into more complex CSS, it's going to be important to be able to understand and visually be able to see all the different elements that are available within your HTML document.